Welcome to the Story World channel. Enjoy your viewing experience. Ben stretched contentedly, reveling in the morning's tranquility as he gazed out the window. The weather was delightful, with birds singing their melodious tunes, and the warm summer sun playfully peeking through the slightly closed blinds, promising a wonderful day of rest. Turning his attention to the love of his life, Paige, he couldn't help but smile. She lay there, sleeping soundly, her peaceful expression captivating his heart. Gratitude washed over him as he thanked fate for bringing this amazing woman into his life. He longed to hold her close and shower her with affection, but he resisted, not wanting to disturb her sweet slumber. Instead, he chose to lie quietly beside her, silently admiring her beauty. Ben's and Paige's love story began 2 years ago at a birthday party for their neighbor, Kara, whom Ben had known since high school. Amidst a small gathering of guests at Kara's apartment, Ben mingled and got to know the others while Kara stuck by his side, seemingly trying to impress him with every gesture. Suddenly, the doorbell rang, interrupting the party. Paige had arrived, and Ben's attention was instantly captivated. Her presence was like a breath of fresh air in the room. Dressed in a flowing soft cream dress, she exuded an air of grace and charm that left Ben intrigued. As fate would have it, a little accident brought them together. Someone accidentally spilled a cold drink on Ben, and in his quick reflex, he managed to catch the girl responsible for the mishap, Paige. Calmly, he told her to be careful, and she looked at him with those enchanting, apologetic eyes. Regret filled Paige's voice as she noticed the red stain on Ben's clothes. Ben, ever the gentleman, assured her it was okay, and that he lived upstairs, intending to change into something clean. Paige sighed with relief, but then, surprisingly, Ben offered to accompany her. "I feel terribly guilty," he said with a kind smile. As they went upstairs together, they engaged in easy conversation, their connection growing stronger with each passing moment. Ben realized that Paige was not just beautiful on the outside. She was also a kind, charming, and genuine person. From that day forward, Ben and Paige's love blossomed. Their encounters became more intentional, and they soon found themselves inseparable. As they navigated life together, their love deepened, and they discovered a profound sense of joy and contentment in each other's company. Now, lying beside Paige, Ben couldn't help but reflect on that fateful day. He knew, without a doubt, that meeting Paige was one of the best things that ever happened to him. Their love story had unfolded like a beautifully written novel, and he cherished every page of it. In the warmth of the morning sun, he felt an overwhelming sense of love and gratitude, looking forward to the countless adventures that awaited them as they journeyed through life together. "Don't worry so much, it's nothing," Ben reassured Paige as he headed towards his apartment. Quietly, she followed him, her mind filled with thoughts she had been contemplating. While Ben changed, Paige waited in the living room, her gaze drawn to the pictures adorning the walls. In one of them, Ben was seen standing with his cousin. It stirred a sense of longing within her as she shared her feelings. "I've always dreamed of having a sister. Unfortunately, my mother never remarried after my father left, and she raised me alone, so the dreams remained just that, dreams." Ben empathized with her, feeling her loneliness in his heart. "I'm so sorry," he said, offering her a comforting presence. Paige decided to change the course of their evening plans. "What do you say if we don't go to Kara's and stay at your place? This part is getting kind of boring," she said, moving closer to him, her breath warm against his skin. "Do you have tea?" she asked with a smile, not waiting for his reply as she headed into the kitchen. Delighted by her suggestion, Ben wished in his heart that Paige would never leave him again. And so it happened. Paige stayed with Ben, and they found happiness together for over 2 years. Their love blossomed, and as fate would have it, Paige's world was about to change in the most beautiful way. Suddenly, she opened her eyes and smiled at her husband. Ben leaned over, kissing her gently and placing his hand on her round belly. He asked, How is the best woman in the world and the mother to be feeling? Fine, whispered Paige, guiding his hand to feel the baby's movements. Our baby's awake too, she said with a smile. And that means it's time for breakfast. Ben was overjoyed. Touching his spouse's belly with his lips, he hurriedly prepared breakfast for her. It should have been a usual day off, as Ben had plans to visit his parents at their summer house in the countryside. They had moved there 3 years ago. However, for the last month, Paige had not been accompanying him on these trips. Filled with concern, Ben returned late at night, only to find Paige absent from their home. Anxious, he called his mother-in-law, Mrs. Mitchell, seeking answers and hoping she could shed some light on Paige's whereabouts. The phone remained unanswered for what felt like an eternity. Finally, Ben heard Paige's distressed voice and poorly restrained sobs, causing a painful feeling to grip his chest. In a trembling voice, he asked, "What's the matter, Paige?" "She's dead, Ben," came the heart-wrenching reply. Mrs. Mitchell could barely speak, struggling to convey the devastating news. Paige had been hit by a drunk driver in a crosswalk, and the reality of her loss was unfathomable to Ben. A deep wound gaped in his soul, and everything around him seemed indifferent. Neither Ben's parents nor Paige's mother could console him or pull him out of the abyss of depression that consumed him. To escape the harsh reality, Ben turned to alcohol, seeking solace in the bottom of a bottle. It became his only salvation, though he had never experienced addiction before. In moments of grief, he often visited the gravesite of his beloved wife and their unborn child, pouring out his heart in tears and conversations with them. On one of those somber evenings, while Ben sat alone with his thoughts and the company of whiskey and pictures of Paige, a familiar face appeared at his doorstep, Kara. She revealed that she had come to support an old friend, and Ben found himself unable to resist her presence. Inviting her in, he offered her a glass of whiskey. "Rest in peace, Paige," Kara said as she downed the entire glass. Kara spent the evening with Ben, lending him a listening ear and sharing his sorrow. She poured more whiskey for him, and as exhaustion overtook Ben, he fell asleep. Surprisingly, Kara chose to stay instead of returning to replace. The next morning, as Ben slowly opened his eyes, he was met with a hellish headache. But Kara was there, bringing him some broth and persuading him to eat. With each spoonful, he felt a little better. From that day on, Kara became a frequent visitor. She seemed to understand Ben, offering him the empathy he craved, and the pain he had been carrying began to feel less burdensome. He no longer felt alone in his grief and found comfort in her presence. Unlike the pity in the eyes of his parents and Paige's mother, Kara's eyes held genuine understanding and support. Ben had been living in solitude for a year, yearning for the warmth and tenderness of a woman's touch, and he began to feel a strong affection for Kara. He thought of starting a relationship with her, believing she could fill the void in his heart. However, soon he realized that he had made a mistake. As Kara got what she wanted from him, her true colors began to emerge. She enjoyed a carefree life, spending money frivolously, which clashed with Ben's desire for stability and healing. Their paths were incompatible, and he couldn't find the comfort he sought in her way of life. Ben knew that despite the pain of loneliness, he couldn't compromise his values and well-being. In the end, Ben learned that healing and finding genuine companionship required more than seeking solace in temporary distractions or relationships born out of vulnerability. He needed time to process his grief and prioritize his emotional well-being, embracing the love he had for Paige, while also moving forward with hope for a brighter future. The man found himself compelled to leave his high-paying job due to the suffocating weight of depression that engulfed him. With his income now considerably reduced, Kara's demands for money only increased. She began to criticize Ben relentlessly, accusing him of being unable to provide for her, and what bothered her the most were his constant memories of his late wife, Paige. One day, Kara came home tipsy from the bar, unleashing her frustration. "That's it. I'm sick of it," she shouted. "How long are we going to remember her? Get over it. You won't find another one like her. What's wrong with me? We've been together for a year, and we're still in the same place." In response, Ben looked sadly at Paige's picture and, with a heavy heart, uttered, "You're right. You'll never replace her for me. I'm sorry, but we've made a mistake. We shouldn't continue our relationship." Kara's emotions spiraled into hysteria. She unleashed a barrage of insults, curses, and humiliation upon Ben, but he remained steadfast in his decision. Despite the storm of her emotions, Kara left his apartment in anger, and they never spoke again. Those words, however hurtful, struck a chord within Ben. For the first time, he confronted the reality of the mess he had made of his life, the way he had sunk into despair. The shame washed over him, realizing that Paige would never approve of the path he had taken. Tearfully, he made a promise to Remembrance that he would pick himself up and set things right. From that moment, Ben swore off the bottle. It took time, but 5 years passed, and he managed to regain his senses. He fought hard and reclaimed his former job, earning a good income once again. He reached out to his family, seeking to rebuild the bonds he had pushed away during his darkest times. Ben was determined to live an ordinary life, except for one aspect: he believed he could never find love again. Though the pain of losing Paige gradually dulled, on each anniversary, Ben continued to visit her grave, bringing flowers and spending time in quiet reflection. He cherished her memory and the love they had shared. But life has a way of surprising us. In a serendipitous turn of events, Ben's path crossed with a woman named Emily. She had also experienced loss in her life, and they found solace in each other's understanding. Slowly, they built a connection based on mutual support and genuine affection. With time, Ben allowed himself to believe in the possibility of love once more. As his heart healed, he learned to cherish the past while embracing the present and future with Emily by his side. It wasn't about replacing Paige, it was about honoring her memory and creating new happiness. Ben's journey taught him that even amidst the darkest moments, hope and redemption were attainable. Life could bloom anew, and love could find its way back into his heart. He carried the lessons from his past and the love he held for Paige as he embraced the love and warmth that Emily brought into his life. In the midst of Ben's favorite chrysanthemums, he found himself lost in thoughts, reminiscing about the past, a long time ago when he and Paige were the epitome of happiness. One day, as Ben was returning home from the grocery store, he planned to cook one of Paige's signature dishes, hoping to relive those cherished moments. As he strolled through the bustling square, an enchanting melody suddenly filled the air, sending shivers down his spine. The voice, unmistakably female, struck a familiar chord within Ben's heart. His curious gaze fell upon the singer, who donned dark glasses, exuding an air of mystery. Inexplicably drawn, Ben came to a standstill, his heart racing, and before he knew it, he found himself embracing the woman. "Paige, my darling, how is this possible?" Ben uttered, his eyes filled with turmoil. Startled, the young woman, named Lauren, protested, "Let go of me. My name is Lauren, not Paige. You must be mistaken." Realization dawned on Ben as he scrutinized her more closely. He noticed the distant look in her eyes, and suddenly it struck him she was blind. "I'm sorry," he apologized. "You look so much like my deceased wife, with the same face." Lauren was at a loss for words, unsure of how to respond. Ben sought confirmation and approached a passerby, showing him a picture of Paige. The man, taken aback, confirmed the resemblance between Paige and the woman in the square. Overjoyed, Ben exclaimed, "You see, I haven't deceived myself. But how is this possible? We must figure this out." Seating Lauren on a nearby bench by the fountain, Ben gently implored her to share her story. She revealed that she had been blind since birth and grew up in an orphanage, abandoned by her mother when her condition became known. Lauren's voice trembled with sadness as she added that living alone and visually impaired made life arduous, and securing a job was nearly impossible. Thus, she resorted to singing in the square, relying on the generosity of passersby for sustenance and clothing. "You possess a stunning and extraordinary voice," Ben praised enthusiastically, the mystery deepening further, and Paige had a similar gift. Their encounter had unearthed a profound connection between two souls, one carrying the memories of a beloved wife, and the other navigating a life filled with challenges. Little did they know that their paths had intertwined for a reason, and this serendipitous meeting would lead them on an extraordinary journey of understanding and discovery. The realization struck both Lauren and Ben that perhaps her life would have taken a different path had she explored her singing skills earlier. The idea that Paige and Lauren might be related, possibly sisters, loomed in their minds, leading them to seek answers from the one person who could shed light on the matter. Ben suggested they visit Mrs. Mitchell, Paige's mother. After some contemplation, Lauren agreed, on the condition that Ben would return her to the same place afterward. As they met Mrs. Mitchell, Ben sensed that a hidden secret was about to be unraveled, and he wasn't mistaken. With heartfelt honesty, Mrs. Mitchell shared her painful past. She revealed how her husband had abandoned her while she was pregnant with twin daughters. Feeling overwhelmed, and with no support from relatives, she made the difficult decision to give one of her daughters away due to a congenital illness, believing it was for her daughter's well-being. The weight of guilt and shame had haunted Mrs. Mitchell all these years, and she never disclosed the truth to anyone. As Lauren and Mrs. Mitchell embraced and forgave each other, Ben felt a profound sense of relief, as if his heart had finally found solace. Lauren chose to live with her mother, cherishing the newfound family bond. Ben continued visiting them, finding comfort in Lauren's company and being mesmerized by her enchanting voice. Together, they held impromptu concerts that acted as a healing balm for their emotional scars, making each day a little easier to endure. Time passed, and Ben realized that he had fallen deeply in love with Lauren. The affection was reciprocated, and they decided to get married. As their love grew, so did their family, and Lauren soon found herself pregnant with twins. Ben couldn't contain his excitement at the prospect of becoming a father to two beautiful souls. The birth of their twins brought immeasurable joy, and as Ben held his children in his arms, he marveled at the beautiful journey that life had taken him on. From the serendipitous encounter in the square to the discovery of lost family connections, he realized that life's twists and turns could lead to the most unexpected blessings. With Lauren's magical voice continuing to fill their home, they built a loving and nurturing environment for their children, fostering a deep sense of belonging and love. And as the years passed, the family thrived, their hearts intertwined by the unbreakable bonds of love and fate. Together, they embraced the joys and challenges that life had to offer, knowing that their unique journey had shaped them into the loving and compassionate individuals they had become. In a world filled with joy, he enveloped his beloved wife with unwavering attention and care, cherishing her as the most precious thing in his entire life. Their love was as vast and complex as the universe itself. In the embrace of happiness, Lauren gave birth to two wonderful boys, filling their home with laughter and delight. Yet, amidst their joy, they never forgot about Paige, a dear sister whose memory they cherished with utmost care. Every year, without fail, Ben and Lauren made a pilgrimage to her final resting place. On one such occasion, they drove to the cemetery, leaving their two boys under the loving care of their grandmother. As they drew near to Paige's grave, a realization struck Ben. He had forgotten the flowers in the car. "Honey, I'll be back in a minute," he hurriedly said to his wife before rushing back to the car. Lauren, left alone beside the cold gravestone, felt a mixture of emotions welling up inside her. With trembling hands, she touched the stone and whispered, "I hope you can forgive me, My happiness is intertwined with living your life." Tears filled her eyes, but she wiped them away and continued speaking. "Dear sister, even in the midst of my happiness, I can't help but feel a tinge of bitterness. Yet I love them all dearly, our mother, Ben, and our precious babies," she confessed. The weight of her emotions lifted slightly, and with a determined voice, she added, "Ben, we can never replace Paige, and she will forever hold a place in our hearts. But you, my dear, are unique and irreplaceable in your own way." She expressed her gratitude for destiny, which had brought them together, and professed her love for him. "I am confident that Paige looks down upon us from heaven, happy that we have found solace in each other's arms," Lauren said, her voice filled with conviction. In that moment, they stood together, holding each other tightly, enveloped in love and gratitude. They placed a beautiful bouquet of soft cream chrysanthemums on Paige's grave, a symbol of purity and remembrance, before returning home to their eagerly waiting sons. The bond between them was not without complexity and variations, much like the ebb and flow of life itself. It was a love that defied predictability, an enduring tale of affection and healing.